What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for The Mandalorian, Season 2. This is Episode 2, but technically this is Chapter,
Chapter 10.
Yeah. The Passenger. With me, as always, I have Luspade.
So this episode was directed by Peyton Reed, who, if nobody knows who that is, he's the director of Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting that that they're getting more MCU directors. Yeah, a lot of MCU people coming in. I mean, Jon Favreau is obviously one because he directed Iron Man and did several other MCU projects. During his time working with Disney.
I think he did a pretty good job with this episode, though.
It was all right.
Directing side of things.
Yeah, directing wise, but
in terms of plot, though, yeah.
Plot wise, it was just.
It's like we were saying before we recorded this. It's basically kind of a monster of the week sort of thing. Where like in the last episode we had the Great Dragon, in this episode we have giant spiders.
So immediately after the last episode, Mando is like riding back to Mos Eisley. Then he just all of a sudden he just gets ambushed by these bandits trying to rob him. So of course he managed to deal with them like pretty handily. And then of course one of the bandits tries to abduct the child, and then he tricks him into taking his jetpack, so he to free Baby Yoda and let him get away. But by the time the guy's running away with his jetpack, like Mando just remotely activates the jetpack to have him fly up into the sky and then just have him fall to his death, which is pretty funny.
I was gonna say, like, one of the things I was kind of hoping that would happen with this episode would be maybe we see Boba Fett again, because of course he's probably going to want his armor back or something. But of course, I guess it's a possibility that maybe Boba Fett knows Mando has his armor and is maybe just like tracking him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's possible. We might end up seeing Boba Fett sometime maybe later on in the season. Whenever he ends up catching up to Mando, because I'm pretty sure he's still in possession of the armor by the end of the episode, despite just circumstances that he was in by the end of this episode, which we'll explain later. But one more thing about Boba Fett, I am hearing news that they are making a Boba Fett spin-off series. So supposedly they're gonna have Temuera Morrison play as Boba Fett, and it's gonna be a story of what's gonna happen. What happened with him, like after the events of Return of the Jedi, to the point where we last saw him in Chapter 9.
Yeah, that's pretty big news, because I know a lot of people wanted, because I know there was like a Boba Fett movie that was supposedly in development for years, but I think that got scrapped, or they said, I remember one of the things they said was that they might turn it into a series, but we hadn't really heard anything about it for a while. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's really official just yet. It's just it's just rumors going around saying that they are making plans and doing a Boba Fett spin-off series. But I think it would be a good story to add on to like what happened to Boba Fett. Give him, like fill in the gaps of his story, like since the events of Return of the Jedi to what he was doing on Tatooine since that time. And maybe give him more stories, like maybe after the events. If somehow, some way he does end up getting his armor back, then we'll see more episodes of him later on.
Yeah, and when The Mandalorian first started, people, of course, theorized that Mando could have been Boba Fett. But yeah, of course, that's not the case now. So back to what we were talking about. So Mando manages to walk all the way back, to Mos Eisley, just carrying carrying the child with him, Boba Fett's armor, and of course the Great Dragon meat that he was taking it along with him, which I was surprised that meat stayed fresh like the entire time that he was carrying it around. He must have been pretty close to Mos Eisley. I don't know. I mean, just
I don't know how long he he walked
Yeah.
for. You know,
I mean, because it just kind of
considering that-
transitioned back to. I think it was around like night time, and he was at Mos Eisley, I think. So.
Yeah. So he goes back to the classic bar from from
Cantina.
Classic cantina from in Mos Eisley, and he meets up with the mechanic Paley Motto. Well, pretty much like telling her like what happened, like he killed the crate dragon, and he finds out that his trail is cold now that he found out that he didn't find the Mandalorian he was looking for. So she does give him some news that she found someone that might help him look for other Mandalorians potentially. So of course so she tells him that he needs to deliver this passenger, which turns out to be this frog-like looking lady carrying her around to a huge tank full of eggs on her back. And of course Mando doesn't understand her because because of her language, because I never seen this kind of species before ever, unless if I missed out on it.
Yeah, I'm not really much of a Star Wars lore enthusiast, so I don't know if we've seen the species before in the expanded lore or anything like that, so I can't say.
Yeah. So one of the complicated things that Mando has to deal with is he has to take her all the way from one place to another without having to go into hyperspace.
Yeah.
Because the reason why he can't go into hyperspace is because of the eggs she's carrying, because the eggs are fragile, and if the ship goes into hyperspace, then they'll all die out. So it pretty much this episode just focuses mostly on Mando, the Frog Lady, and of course Baby Yoda, which there were some segments in the episode which I thought it was kind of messed up, with Baby Yoda just looking at the eggs and just frequently eating them.
I know they were playing it for a joke, but I'm thinking he's just eating her unborn children, so I'm just that's yeah.
And it's just I don't know, I just found out it's funny, but it's just the most fucked up thing I've seen. Every time I keep seeing him doing it, it's I mean, I would have been okay, if he just did it just that one time, but he just kept doing it. I think
he does it quite a few times, and then he does it at the end of the episode. I was kind of hoping he might have stopped by the end of the episode, but no, he kept eating them.
He just keeps sneaking in one more egg after another, and of course during that long journey they come across a couple New Republic X-wings, and of course because Mando's not in hyperspace, he can't get past them in any way, so they of course do a ship check on him, and then sooner or later they find out that the ship that he's flying is the same ship that happens to be the one that was involved in the prisoner escape in one of the episodes back in season 1. So Mando it gets into a pretty enjoyable chase scene between the Razor Crest and the two X-wings chasing him. And one of the things I noticed is one of the X-wing pilots is of course Dave Filoni's character, who also cameoed in that exact same prisoner escape episode back in season 1.
I like the chase scene. I thought it was pretty cool. He manages, of course, to evade them, but his ship ends up pretty badly damaged, and then it ends up falling through the ground into a cavern, and his ship is pretty messed up by that point, to the point where he needs to repair it because he can't take off again.
Yeah, so they're pretty much stranded at that point, and they tried to camp out overnight, but the Frog Lady gets pretty desperate, so she uses one of the old droid heads that Mando ended up destroying in the last season, and pretty much because he can't understand what she's saying, so she hot wires or just tinkers with the droid's head to make it make it into a translator for her. So she pretty much like tells Mando her situation of why she's carrying the children, or actually her offspring, saying that it's the last set of children in her cycle, because if they ended up dying, then like that's it, her species is done. So she pretty much implores him, because pretty much eggs him on, because like of the of what the Mandalorians are capable of, and she initially starts doubting him because of his initial refusal to keep going and stuff, because of their current situation. So like the Mando eventually just reluctantly accepts, and then just tries to fix his ship. And during that time, like he ends up finding tracks and wonders where the frog lady went. And then of course they go into a cave where they find her sitting in a hot spring.
Yeah, they find her in a hot spring, and of course Mandalorian is like trying to basically get her to come back and gathering up her eggs. While he's doing this, Baby Yoda wanders off and starts seeing what looks like these bigger eggs within the cavern, and starts kind of like opens one of the eggs up and starts eating what's inside, which ends up being a spider. This of course angers I guess like wakes up the rest of the spiders within the eggs, as well as all the other spiders that were hiding in the surrounding area, and gets them to go after Baby Yoda and of course Mando and the frog lady. So it seems that they had stumbled upon Shelob's lair here, where like I guess that we find there's a giant spider that also comes out and starts chasing them along with all the other spiders.
I mean, it was a fun and enjoyable chase scene with like Mando just constantly just blasting every spider, using every arsenal that he has, including his flamethrower. And then like they eventually like run away all the way back to the Razor Crest, but so like it gets to the point where like he tries to shoot them all off, and then he manages to shut the door in time. So they managed to try to take away, which I'm surprised like the ship is still functioning at the time, despite how damaged the
I didn't even know he repaired it enough for it to even be able to take off, but I guess so. I don't know.
But as soon as it was taking off, the giant spider that was chasing them like just completely just stops them in its tracks, and then they just completely destroy like the windows in the cockpit. And I just thought, oh my god, they're completely screwed at this point. And then soon afterwards, like the two X-wing pilots that were chasing him initially ended up saving them. So like the Mando gets out, like and meets up with the two pilots, and then of course one of the pilots explained that there's an arrest warrant on the Mandalorian for freeing one of the prisoners back in season 1. Although like they note that technically he should be arrested, but they note that Mando ended up confining like all the 3 other criminals that he was working with back at the time, and they found records of him defending a prison guard, which unfortunately he ended up getting killed, but he ended up defending him anyway. So they ended up overlooking the incident afterwards, but they ended up leaving without actually helping him repair his ship.
I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I guess they let him off the hook temporarily, but then when of course Mando asked for their help, they're like, no, I think we're gonna leave. So yeah, they just kind of left him there. I mean, if this was the Empire, they would have like come after him like immediately, but because like this is like the New Republic is based off of Rebellion, they're a bit more lenient than I mean, you could say that they're a bit lenient, but they're still part of a government that is part of a rule of law, so they need to keep the peace. But they, like they said, it's part of trying times, and they're still trying to look for other holdouts of the Empire. I mean, they're still rebuilding and hunting down remnants of the Empire. So I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned in the last episode before, the New Republic at this stage, it's not as big of government as it was back in the
Right.
prequels, because like I said, there's still holdouts of the Empire. Like you could say like most of the galaxy is still loyal to the Empire, and some planets are loyal to the New Republic because of them helping the Rebel Alliance at the time. So we're not really sure, like at this stage, like of where the power struggle is at this point. I mean, unless they tell another story.
I would mostly just base it off of what I know from like the expanded universe, and that when there's the Imperial remnant, there's like Imperial warlords kind of scattered around everywhere. So I'm assuming it's probably pretty similar here, because I think they do reference warlords every now and again. So
yeah, and of course there's also the potential storyline of how the First Order came into power
but
as
I mean,
well. So
it's hard to say if that. I mean, I guess I could assume that's what they might follow. The story they might follow is the sequel trilogy events, but it doesn't seem like so far they've really like leaned one way or another, like if they're leaning more towards the EU version of what happened, or the new Disney timeline. So I mean, you could make a case for either one, I guess, but they haven't really. It doesn't seem like they've really made it obvious which, if they're going towards like I said, Disney timeline, or the old EU timeline.
Yeah, I mean, Disney is taking some elements from the EU during certain points, like for example, like the Krayt Dragon fight back in the last episode. It was mostly based off of a boss fight that happened in Knights of the Old Republic, in which you're trying to lure it out of the cave, and then you have explosives, which is in a similar manner how you beat the Krayt Dragon.
Yeah, and I mean, as we know with that too, that Disney is, at least as far as we know, they're trying to kind of replace the Old Republic with this, with kind of like their version of Old Republic, with like the High Republic,
called the High Republic. I mean, we would have gotten that story originally like last summer had it not been for the pandemic. But we'll have to wait and see what exactly they have planned for that series. I mean, I don't have high expectations for.
Yeah, based on what I've seen, I'm not too enthusiastic about it, to be honest. Like, but yeah, I mean, we'll have to just settle with like what we're getting right now. I mean, but yeah, by the end of this episode, Mando does somehow like manage to take off, but they can only stay in the cockpit because like the hull itself is completely damaged. And I have no idea how that, like, it seems like that thing is about to fall apart, because like when you see it going through space, like it's just the doors about to come off, and it looks like one of the engines is like really damaged or something. So
yeah, it's just like sputtering like from time to time, and I'd be amazed on like how the hell he manages to get to destination from what state that ship is currently in. But yeah, I mean, of course, the last part of the episode, just Baby Yoda just sneaks in like one more bite of the one of the eggs he steals. Honestly, I just don't know why they had him do that.
I guess they thought it was cute.
It's funny, but
I don't know. Like,
I honestly, I just thought it was messed up when I mean, you would have thought like that kid would have at least learned something out of like what situation that the frog lady was in, trying to protect his children.
That's where I thought they might have been going with it, like where he would like regret what he did or something, and he wouldn't do it again, but he does it again. So
I don't know. It's like, I mean, I could argue he's still young, but the 50. I mean, technically the child is like 50 years old from what they say, but it's just I just thought it kind of got a little bit overdone like at the end of that episode. But yeah, that's that's where the
Yeah.
episode ends. So we'll have to see what happens next week.
I will say I'm kind of hoping
Mando
that this whole plot doesn't end up being sort of like this wild goose chase where like Mando tries to find where the Mandalorians are and then he ends up finding maybe like another monster or something else, and it ends up being like they're not there, and then he has to go to another place or something like that. Like I hope it doesn't end up going in that direction, because that would be really
well. There's one thing that I am noticing up to this point is they're already getting like to the point where the trailers ended up showing.
Yeah.
So if you know,
Well,
like I have some
we do
idea.
know that Cara Dune's going to show up again. We know the other guy's going to show up again. You know, of course, they're going to be some of the Clone Wars characters. So I mean, like, I'm pretty sure we are going to get into like, you know, what is, I'm guessing, the main plot of this season eventually, but I just don't know when that's going to happen. Yeah.
I would assume like most of the stuff we saw in the trailers are, I would assume probably by the first 4 episodes, if anything. Yeah. So it, like, I think they're holding off one of the major surprise, or maybe several major surprises, by probably the last 4 episodes of this season. So we'll have to see like where this season goes. But so far, like, you know, from what I heard, like I said, it's 8 episodes this season. There doesn't seem to be any like sort of break into it. Like we're pretty much gonna get like every episode like probably by the end of December.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like, I kind of. Well, what do you think about like the format of them just releasing an episode a week? You know, because it's like, would you rather them do that or just release it all at once? Because
it depends on, like, you know, I mean, it depends on the taste of the, you know, that person. I don't know. Like, I think the reason why Disney is doing, I mean, I'm used to like watching episodes.
Yeah, I mean,
week,
same, but
like,
but I know like you know,
but,
even with Netflix, for example, or even with at least most Amazon Prime shows, like they'll release like pretty much everything all at once. But you know, so then you could just binge the whole season. But
I mean, I wouldn't mind that, but you know, I mean, it's good, it's okay either way. But you know, Disney has their reasons of doing it on a weekly basis, just because I you know, they want people to be invested on their streaming service, because like, for example, like 8 episodes is like 2 months worth of content, and it's like what, $6.99 per month. So it's they're probably like, you know, milking people for money to.
I mean, it's definitely part of a business strategy. You know, it's just to keep people on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I mean, they also did the same thing for, you know, the Clone Wars earlier this year, which had 12 episodes. So I mean, it'd be nice if they went the route to like release every episode all at once, but you know, it's more of a business strategy to keep people invested in their streaming service, because, like, you know, like I said, the streaming, like the basic cable services, like in the old days, is pretty much dying out at this point, and most networks are relying on streaming services.
I mean,
right
but
now.
it almost feels like, you know, because people were cutting the cord with cable so they could get away from all these different you know, all these different channels, these different networks and stuff, but now it's kind of like it almost feels like it's going back to that with the streaming wars, like with all these different companies having their own streaming services, and you know,
well, streaming services are a lot more convenient than than the basic cable networks, because like, you know, back then, like, you would have to, like, you know, like, you're waiting for new episodes, but it's only you can only watch it at a certain time, from, like, for example, like 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, but you're working that time and you can't, you know, you're forced to like have to use DVR technology to try to maybe record it and watch the episode back. But you know, not a lot of people, like, you know, can bother with those as much as they did before. So now, I mean, streaming services are a lot more convenient, because not only can you wait to watch the episode at any time, you can just continuously watching it over and over and over again as much as you want.
Yeah, and of course there's no advertisements, at least not usually. Yeah, so I guess for this, in regards to this episode, like, I will say, I will agree, I thought it was okay. Like, it wasn't wasn't great. Like it could have. I was kind of hoping that they would, they would go forward with the main plot, but they could be holding out, until maybe, like I think Spade said, until maybe around episode 4 or something like that. They might just be kind of starting slow and then, building up to it.
Yeah, I mean, I would compare this to the second episode of the first season when like the Mando was trying to have his ship fixed because the Jawa stole parts of his ship, and then he ended up fighting like this giant mud rhinoceros thing back in that episode. So it's more reminiscent of that, if anything, like else. So yeah, so I mean, yeah, so we'll have to see what the next episode is going to feature next week. I mean, I have some ideas of who's going to be showing up.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of hope it's not another, like, we were kind of joking it's a monster of the week, and I kind of hope it's not another one of those where it's like, oh, it's another monster. Maybe it's a different plot at least, where he doesn't have to fight a monster.
Yeah, I seriously just hope they just like move on to the next part of the plot, because like they can't, I mean, the season 1 did have some like a few filler episodes here and there, but I mean they were all right, but it didn't, they didn't really focus on much of the main plot until like maybe I think maybe about half of the episodes back in season 1 were plot focused, while half of them were mostly
and
filler.
there's some things like from the end of the first season that I really want to see some more of, like what was his name, like Moff Gideon, and him having the Darksaber, and is he going to go off the Mandalorian now? Like, I want to know what's going to happen with that, but we of course haven't gotten anything on that yet. I'm guessing they're probably saving that for a little bit later, but I am really interested to see where they're going to go with that. But I guess we'll have to wait to get anything else on that.
Yeah. I know Dave Filoni is going to be directing one of the episodes for this season, and most of the people are assuming that that's going to be that one episode that Ahsoka Tano might make her appearance in that episode, because it's the most likely one, because like I said before, like Dave Filoni is the creator of Clone Wars, and he created Ahsoka Tano, and he pretty much has the rights to do whatever he wants with the character.
Yeah. I guess we'll just have to see what happens. I don't really have much else to say about this one, though. It's like I said, it was okay. Like, it wasn't great, but it was okay for what it was. Had some pretty good action scenes. Plot wasn't really anything amazing, so it's kind of just like trying to get from point A to point B, and then kind of running into an obstacle and having to deal with that. And that's basically what the episode was.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I guess unless you have anything else to say about it.
No, I mean, we'll have to wait until like next Friday to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so that all being said, until next Friday, we will see you all next time.